Hello everyone, my name is Moji. You're watching a Bitcoin Bubble News channel. It's really amazing me. There have never been ETFs that have grown this quickly. ETFs have been around for 30 years and there are now thousands of them. The Bitcoin ETFs that just came out this year broke all the records. The Bitwise Bitcoin ETF has grown more quickly than GLD, the gold ETF. A few of the big ones have also set all-time highs, and I think that's really amazing. After the first quarter of the Bitcoin ETF's launch, 944 firms owned them, which is 10 times more firms than owned gold ETFs. This is amazing in and of itself, but it's even more amazing when you consider that most professional money managers, financial advisors, and institutional investors have a lot of responsibility. They are in charge of what's going on with high-yield alternatives, local bonds, treasuries, and growth stocks. And even if they are very excited about the idea of putting Bitcoin in their business, it has to be on their list of things to do. It has to go through a process of due research and meetings with some groups, which is why I think the fact that 944 got that done so quickly and with such high priority within 75 days of the start really shows how much interest there is. Also, I will say that this is just the beginning. Bitcoin is getting a lot of money from big businesses, and it's only just started. That's a message from Hunter Horsley. Hunter Horsley is the CEO of Bitwise, an asset manager that is one of the companies that makes Bitcoin ETFs. Hunter talked about how 2024 has been a really big year for Bitcoin in his most recent interview. As soon as Bitcoin ETFs were accepted, they went live and broke every ETF record that could be broken. Both Democrats and Republicans back crypto, so why isn't Bitcoin worth more? Hunter Horsley found the answer by looking at how big businesses and banks handle Bitcoin from the inside. The time frames of institutions and skilled investors are very different from those of regular investors. They work in a different way. Moving quickly for them means months of reviews, due diligence, and talks. Hunter, on the other hand, tells them they are coming and that it will be a huge amount of money. Hunter explains why he's so sure that Bitcoin will reach even more all-time highs by the end of the year near the end of the video, so let's get right to the most important parts of Hunter's conversation. By the end of the first quarter of 2024, they had to show what they owned, and what it showed was pretty amazing how quickly standard companies started using Bitcoin ETFs. To give you some facts that I think are really interesting, GLD, the first gold ETF in history, launched in the first quarter. Gold is a well-known asset that has been around for a long time, and this was a long-awaited ETF launch. The gold ETF was owned by 95 companies after the first quarter, which means that 95 traditional investment advisors, hedge funds, and institutional firms bought it. After the first quarter of the Bitcoin ETF's launch, 944 firms owned them, which is 10 times more firms than owned gold ETFs. This is amazing in and of itself, but it's even more amazing when you consider that most professional money managers, financial advisors, and institutional investors have a lot of responsibility. The things that happen with growth stocks, foreign stocks, municipal bonds, treasuries, and high-yield alternatives portfolios are all their responsibility. And even if they are very excited about the idea of putting Bitcoin in their business, it has to be on their list of things to do. It has to go through a process of due research and meetings with some groups. That 944 got that done and put it so high on their list of priorities that they did it just 75 days after the start really shows how much interest there was. I'll also add that this is just the start. Most businesses probably couldn't move that fast. As you know, we work with thousands of firms, so I can tell you that a lot of work is already being done and more is on the way. But the 13 FS that were filed by May 15th made it clear that Bitcoin is transitioning and crossing its chasm, entering its mainstream age. That sounds really exciting to me. Also, I'd like to add that these numbers show that they are the leaders in every area. Some of the biggest RAs like Hightower, Sequoia Financial, Brown Advisory, and AIQ are very well known and respected for their wealth management companies have said they own Bitcoin ETFs. Some of the best hedge funds are Millennium D, Shaw, and Schoenfeld. These aren't just any companies. These are the best in their group. One pension fund filed to say that it owns Bitcoin ETFs. A lot of banks and mutual funds have also done the same. So there's still a long way to go, but I think the way things are going so far is a clear answer to the question of whether Bitcoin will only be used by people or by big businesses. The answer is that standard businesses will start to use it in 2024. It might be a funny time for Bitcoin and the crypto world as a whole. A lot of people who are interested in the space and have been following it for a long time pay close attention to what happens every day and every week. This new group of people, the standard investment professional, doesn't work on the same schedule. Let me show you what I mean. There was a company that was very excited about and looking forward to the start of the Bitwise Bitcoin ETF. We wrote them a note. The symbol for the product is BITB, and we said it was live. They told me, this is crazy, this can now finally be put in client accounts. We're going to act on this right away. We should talk on the phone next month. Which is why I say that, to show that ASAP means next month and not later today or next week. But for these companies, that's what moving fast looks like. I believe a big moment is happening, but the beat will be a little different from the beat of individual investors, who are what this area is most used to hearing. It will be a great element. They are in charge of $40 trillion in Us wealth, compared to about $10 trillion by individual investors who choose to spend on their own. They know a lot about it. They are people who think about the long term. Thus, I believe that the real price of Bitcoin will be found this year, now that more people can invest in it, and I believe it will be much higher. But from day to day and week to week, price changes are more likely to be caused by what traders or regular people do, while this very big component slowly and methodically moves into the space. Also, I think it's pretty cool that companies like BlackRock have said that Bitcoin is a good asset for skilled investors to have. I believe that most of the time, studies that suggest putting a lot of money into Bitcoin are actually optimizing things that happened in the past, after the fact, to get the best of some function, like returns. When you look at things through that simple view, you can see that it was smart to have a lot of Bitcoin because it has had very high returns in the past. It's hard because most buyers are looking ahead to a time when they don't know what will happen. What will happen with Bitcoin? No one knows. They also don't know what will happen with their other options, growing stocks, fixed income, or anything else. In the future, I think there are two main ways to talk about it: allocating for a few clients. And in this case, I'm talking about the wealth management cohort allocating for a few clients that they know are particularly interested or who have asked them in the past. Or be allocating across clients and making it a model allocation that they support right along with, say, stocks and bonds. I believe the measurements we are seeing now are between 1% and 3%. If you do an analysis. Many firms use our white paper that does an analysis and looks at standard deviations, sharper ratios, top drop, and different sizes. When you look at that data over the time frame you have for Bitcoin, you can see a good reason to be between 1% and 5% without taking on much more risk. You could use risk for return research to support any amount between 1% and 5%, but it's a mix of science and art. I also think that a lot of companies are making between 1% and 3% right now. One last thing I want to say is that is going up. We've been doing this for a long time, so 1% used to be the big and important amount to give. At this point, I would say that 1% is the low end of the range and 3% is the strong and important amount. You even see 5 and 10 from time to time. That's why I think this will go up over time as people get used to the room. But that's what we hear when people talk about sizes. There you have Hunter Horsley's information about the large amounts of money that are coming into Bitcoin from institutions. As the CEO of one of the biggest Bitcoin ETF issuers,